Good afternoon, everyone. It is time for the Get to Know Her show. Do you think I should maybe remove the tape in my... I was doing some shipping here the other day and I keep knocking it and it makes a terrible sound. I'm so happy to have you guys here. We have another glorious Tuesday. I'm sure a lot of you are sitting outside eating your lunch right now because it's so beautiful. And I just want this weather to stay already. It's so nice. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Danielle Leonard with us today, and I'm going to introduce you to her in just a moment. But how many of you guys have been on Brenda Bedome's website lately? Because she's got some beautiful pieces, and spring is coming, and we need to lighten up the wardrobe. I was feeling like a little satin again today, because you know how much I love her satin, and I'm wearing her black satin top. And I'm even thinking I'm going to wear this in the summer with a tank top and roll up the sleeves, maybe with some jean shorts, who knows? But I love Brenda's clothes, and they're so comfy and they always feel so good. So make sure you go and check out brendabedome.com and use the coupon code Get to Know Her, because she's going to give you 21% off of your first order. So that's pretty awesome. Danielle. She's in our virtual green room right now, waiting to come on. But before I bring her on, I want to introduce her. Danielle is the editor-in-chief of West of the City magazine, a Toronto Star-owned lifestyle magazine that serves a readership across Mississauga, Burlington, and Oakville. The mother of 3 teens, yoga instructor, and author, has spent over 2 decades honing her writing craft and could wallpaper a room with her rejection letters. I can't wait to talk to her about this. That's amazing. Still, she never gave up. Her repertoire spans short stories, articles, business communications, websites, manuscripts, and a young adult novel. She's worked as a waitress, communications consultant, web designer, communications manager, project manager, special features writer, and now editor, not to mention full-time mama for 10 years. Over the past 2 years, she blogged about her decision to live alcohol-free after a robust 30-year run as a social drinker. Today, she continues to dream big as she plans to launch a new business in the fall. This chat with Danielle has so much to be discovered, including her involvement with the At Home in Bronte Muskoka chairs designs, which many of you have seen in Bronte down at the water. Beautiful, beautiful Muskoka chairs painted by different artists. So let's not wait. Let's bring Danielle on now and dive right into this conversation.
Hello.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm so happy you could do the show, Danielle. This is really exciting. And I love all of the facets to you. This is like, I feel like I could talk to you for an hour on this thing, an hour on another thing, an hour on So in the real world, when we get to know each other, we might have some long walks ahead of us.
Yeah, for sure. No longer over a glass of wine like my old days.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Over tea. A sparkling glass of water. Yeah, exactly. I'm in.
Yeah.
So Danielle, I have to ask you the first question I ask all of my guests, and that is, what did little Danielle want to be when she grew up?
Oh, okay. I didn't expect that. You know what? I actually, the one thing I probably remember clearest, I'm sure like most kids, I had lots of different ideas that changed over the years, but I did always feel like I was meant to be a writer from a really young age, from as young as I can remember. I mean, I remember I wrote a play for, my brothers and sisters. I'm the middle of 5 kids. We used to do plays, all of us did. Back then, there's no screens. There weren't cartoons even to watch other than Saturday morning. So you had to entertain yourselves. But I do remember writing a script, like a Christmas show script that we all like acted out and performed for all our family. And I'd write poetry from like in grade school and in high school, and I'd write short stories. So yeah, I just always wanted to be a writer, and
that's wonderful. I love I love that you wrote plays for your siblings to perform. I remember that as well when my parents would have like friends at the cottage and all the kids, we'd spend all day. Our plays were usually about Star Wars. And we do a full out Star Wars play. And I mean, you know, we're going to talk about alcohol later, but I feel like maybe those plays were responsible for my parents having one too many glasses of wine sometimes.
To sit through them. Yeah, exactly.
Just to sit through them. Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. And your siblings, so have they always been supportive of you and your writing over the years as you kind of dabbled in different things? Were they interested in it, or were they kind of focused on their own things, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, writing's always been said, it's a personal thing, right? So it's not really something I probably didn't even really talk about it growing up with them. I think I'm just kind of known in the family as the more, I don't know, I don't want to say creative. We're all creative. Everybody's creative, but I was kind of known more as the creative one, you know, I had my artist temperament. I'm known for my artist temperament, which is, you know, could be a little volatile at time when I was younger. So in that regard, you know, I was just kind of known as sort of that part of the family, the creative, the more sensitive one. So, but yeah, other than that, it was never like a big thing on my radar. It's just like, one day I'd like to be a writer, but I was in the middle of 5. Like, it was easy to fly under the radar. We're in the middle of 5 kids. So I wasn't broadcasting my dreams very much back then.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting what you're saying about the artist's temperament. Like, I'd be curious to know what it was like for you, because for me, it was like I get an idea and I wanted to do it now. And I had to get all the resources together to do whatever it was. And my parents were constantly like, I remember in those years, they'd always say, you are so impulsive, just slow down. And I was like, no, did you have that, like that inner, like the fire, you were going to almost explode? You know, that's how I used to feel.
From my memory. I can't say I like exactly how my brothers and sisters and my parents necessarily remember me, but I even just in the last 10 years, I've finally become less impulsive. I've been impulsive my entire life. And then suddenly I'm like hitting my 40s. I'm like, hey, wait, I think I can finally slow down now. But I would be like, I got this idea, like, okay, I've always wanted to save the world. You know, I think creatives in general just have this like heavy burden. We all want to save the world in one way or another. So I'm like, you know, I'm going to just pursue this. And I kind of remember, and I don't want to like throw my family under the bus because this is just my own perception. Yeah. Sometimes I got the impression they'd be like, oh yeah, okay, here's your latest, latest thing now. And then I'd get over it and move on to the next latest thing. So there was definitely some of that impulsive side coming out. And I was known for my explosions when I was younger, for sure. My mom would attest to that. I definitely indulged in the more than odd temper tantrum. So
wow. I find that fascinating, and I think it's good for people who are listening, who are kind of like dabbling in, you know, more artistic or creative work. It's relatable, right? Like as soon as you said that, I'm like, I was like that as a kid too. Like, you know, and there were certain triggers, and for sure, it's all part of it. I feel like you're bigger than what your little body can handle, right?
There's just, exactly. Like inside you're exploding, and it's just not okay to do it on the outside. So you need to somehow like rein that in. And, you know, I have 3 sons, and certainly one of them is a little more like me in that regard. And I'm actually thankful that I had that personality growing up, because I can understand him so much better than other people necessarily understood me, because they'd be like, oh my gosh, she's losing it. She's losing it again. What's wrong with this kid? But with him, I'm like, I get it. Like, you know, you probably got it from me. So, you know, it's helped me, because I've had to work through all this, as I'm sure you have. As we get older, we're like, hey, we can be creative without like losing our
So do you remember as a kid, like what your triggers were? What kind of set you off? I want to know.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. What were my triggers? I mean, I think my teenage years were probably the worst. I do remember slamming lots of doors. you know what? I don't even know what my triggers were anymore. I think just not getting my way, you know, you're the middle of 5 kids, just being 5 kids, you're not allowed to get your way that much because there's, you know, my parents had to keep us under control somehow. So we did have some rules. So I think it was just not being able to get my way. I don't know. I mean, in general, we were all good kids. None of us were into trouble, but yeah, I don't even know. I just remember I'd get angry, but probably the biggest thing that would just get me to the next level versus me just starting to stew is my mom would say, Danielle, calm down. Don't have a temper tantrum. And then you're like, don't tell me not to have a temper tantrum. They're like, there you go. It's all over.
Yeah.
So I've learned, don't ever tell somebody losing it, calm down. Not a good idea.
It's amazing, you know, and our parents are from such a different generation, right? And it's so for sure. I remember for me, it was like, if my big idea was kind of diminished or ignored, or like there were more important things to discuss, like maybe my parents were having financial struggle or whatever it was. And I'd get so mad and I'd slam the door and go out for a walk and I'd steal one of my dad's cigarettes and smoke it, you know, and then come back and douse perfume all over myself so they wouldn't know. I mean, just the dumbest dramatic. Yeah, but it was all of this expression that had to come out. And then, and along with that, I don't know about you, but it's sort of like you become, as you get to be an adult, you become reactive to things. And now that, you know, once I hit my 40s, that's when I was like, I don't want to be a reactor anymore.
Right.
I want to be an observer now.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that. That's like a whole other world of way to live, isn't it?
Yeah, totally different way. Much more enjoyable way to live. Yeah.
Why didn't we just do that all along?
Yeah, like why didn't I figure this out sooner? Why did it take me to my 40s? But you know, that's one of the great. There's so many resources out there now to like help us manage people like you and I were, obviously. We're impulsive and emotional, and there's so much out there for us to, you know, manage that I feel like we can. Like I'm able to use that to help my son so that he doesn't have to take 40 years to figure out what took me 40 years. He can do it by 30 instead of 40. So yeah. But
not only your son, honestly, Danielle, the work you're doing, like you're helping other women, you know, your blog is fantastic. I'm sure you're helping men too, but as a woman reading your blog, I'm like, oh my God, she totally gets me.
Yeah.
So
I do. I mean, if you're like the way I was, totally get you.
Yeah, I love it. So let's dive into West of the City magazine. Yeah, tell us about that, when that all started for you and how things have changed with COVID.
Yeah, for sure. So I just, you know, for anybody who doesn't know what West is, ding, 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 here we go. So this is the latest West of the City issue for anybody who isn't aware of what it is. It's been around 20 years. So, but it's owned by Metroland and Toronto Star. So it's delivered to households, certain areas in Mississauga, Oakville, and Burlington. So, I was working at the Hamilton Spectator before I started working at West of the City. As you indicated at the beginning, I've had like a pretty varied career, all generally in communications. I kind of always just kept that part alive. And I wanted in the description to say that I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years because a lot of women struggle to get back some kind of footing after being at home. Like while I was home, I did continue to write. I was always working on a novel and I was writing short stories and, you know, trying to get things published constantly. But my main focus was being at home. And so when I decided to pursue professionally, again, like a job outside of the home, I had to kind of address all that like guilt and shame and like, oh my gosh, I've been working for 10 years. How am I ever going to be something other than, you know, as a grocery store clerk? Nothing wrong with that, but I didn't want to be a grocery store clerk. So, so I just wanted to make it clear that, you know, it is possible to like reinvent yourself. And, you know, remember, you're still an amazing person with so much to offer. And if I could do it again, anybody could do it. So
yeah, we don't expire, do we?
No, it's like, you know, I thought in like mid 30s, I'm like, late 30s, how am I ever going to get back to work? It's like, oh my God. still young. Just, go for it, do it. Don't believe in yourself. So, and I just remember when I was thinking, okay, how am I going to get back in? I love to hear that other women who'd given up their careers were doing, they had a second life as, these great professionals. So that's why I wanted to throw that in there. And then, so after working at the Hamilton Spectator as a writer, I did all the special sections there, which is like sort of advertorial sections. And I did all the writing and content for that. So then this position opened up. The editor decided to resign at West of the City. And I don't know, it was kind of just like, sorry, I hate to say it, but sort of like destiny. It was just it kind of literally fell in my lap. And whenever I watch interviews and they're like, how did you get to here? And they're like, well, it just kind of happened. It just fell in my lap. It would drive me crazy. I'm like, how did that happen? But it actually did. Like, it literally fell in my lap because my job suddenly was ending. And at the same time, West of the City suddenly had this vacancy. And I was like, am I really good enough to become an editor-in-chief at West of the City? And apparently I was. They decided to hire me. So it just kind of was very serendipitous. One job ended, this one started. And as soon as I took it over, it just felt very natural to me. And the funny thing is, I've been like dreaming of being an editor for so many years. And not to say that I'd given up in the dream, but I was kind of like, you know what, I'm cool. I'm fine. Like, I don't need to be an editor. I'm good. I'm in my mid-40s. I'm trekking along as a writer. So when it happened, it was like, oh, wow, dang. So the universe kind of unfolds. If you think of something long enough, eventually the universe does unfold in your favor. That's kind of how I saw it. So
and that letting go piece, I'm sure also has a lot to do with it, right? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So this is really cool, Danielle, because you've come to this place in your career where you almost said, well, if it doesn't happen, that's fine. I'm good. And now here it is. And you also have this whole history of rejection letters and going for things that didn't happen. How in the world did you work through that? And now knowing what I know about you, because I'm feeling like we have this similarity with temperament and all that stuff. How did you cope with that? Rejection is a hard thing to take. I am not ashamed to say that. When I get rejected, I take it very, very hard.
Yeah, totally.
And I just wonder how you manage that.
Yeah, terribly at first. I took it way too personally. I look back at that girl and I'm like, oh my gosh, chill out, girl. But when I first decided, okay, I'm really going to pursue writing, I'm going to start really freelancing and send out articles. I took courses at Ryerson and journalism, and I was writing short stories and submitting them to short story back when there were short story magazines. I don't even know if they exist. I don't think there's many left, sadly. But this was the day I literally had to print off letters, put them in envelopes, send them a self-addressed stamped envelope so they could send me a rejection letter back without having to pay for postage.
You had to pay for the rejection. I love it.
Gosh. Yeah. And so it was, I would literally cry. I would get rejection letters because I'd be like, I put my heart and soul into this. How am I going to survive this? It's just one rejection after another. And I'd say it took me a good couple of years to stop crying when I got my rejection letters. And you kind of just harden up, and in a good way. You just have to accept, this is just a part of being a writer. And I also realize even the greatest writers out there have experienced at least rejection in the beginning. And a lot of freelance writers who have won awards continue to get rejections. Now it's all just by email.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you get a rejection that they're usually just ignored. You just don't get an answer.
Yeah.
But it just helped me to not take life so seriously and just focus more on the craft versus the reward, which would be, getting published, making money. And unfortunately, it took me a long time to figure that out. And any good writer will tell you that. It's really about the craft and putting yourself into this piece and really believing in what you're writing, whether you're a journalist or an author of a novelist or, nonfiction writer. It's really just about appreciating the process itself. And then, you know, of course, we all need to make a living. So it always helps to not only get rejections, so you can eventually earn some income.
Sure. Yeah. So during that time when you were receiving those rejections, did you have a mentor or anybody you were able to turn to sort of say, can you look at my work? Is there some feedback you can give me? Like, were you open to sort of being critiqued on what you were doing?
Yeah, for sure. So initially I took criticism horribly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking in my 20s. Yeah, I was like, I'd say I wanted to be criticized, but then as soon as I got criticism, I'd be like, they don't know what they're talking about. It's like those reality shows where people walk off the door and they say, you haven't seen the last of me. You're like, hey, yeah, I have. But
true.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I became more open to critiquing, I did join, I really wanted to be a novelist. That was the big thing I wanted to be. You know, I did eventually get a novel published, but, you know, have I experienced commercial success? No. And I'm fine with it now. But so my biggest critiques were in trying to write a good novel that, you know, a publisher would want. So I joined a writing group. So we would meet once a week. We were all like writers trying to write books. So we would critique each other's work every week. So that was one way I learned to, you know, appreciate and work on my own writing. I did workshops. And then I just moved to online critiquing. They were like, I think they're still there. They were like online forums where you could trade each other's works and critique each other's work. So like I really got a lot of great feedback over that. And that was probably about 5 to 6 years I was involved in all that. And I'd be like, I'd take all this criticism. I'd criticize their stuff, like, you know, constructive criticism. And then I did eventually get to a point where I'm like, you know, I'm good. Like I'm still open to criticism, but at some point you have to kind of just own what you write. And you know, once you get to a level where you're like,
love it.
I know I've worked hard to get where I am. And I mean, I'm a good writer. I think I'm a good writer. I'm not going to win a Pulitzer or a Giller, but you know I'm a quality writer after 20 years of writing almost daily. So I did get to a point where I'm like, I don't really need the constant criticism because it's not really, at the end of the day, you have to find your own voice.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. I love that you're saying this. It's so true. And it's so funny. And I'm just making this comparison. You know, I'm in a different art form, but when I first started designing jewelry, I remember I had this one piece and it was my most popular piece. And then I had a girl she's one of my best friends now. She was repping my jewelry line and she said, why don't you put the beads like this instead of like that? And it was a very slight change. And I was like inside so offended, like, what the hell? This is my bestseller. I am the creator. How could you? And then I thought, well, maybe I will do that little thing. Sure enough, it tripled my sales.
Wow.
And then once I started seeing that this criticism coming back was, you know, or the critiquing was actually helping me, and it was expanding my brain to see things in a different way. And I was seeing results. I was more and more open, but you're absolutely right. Yeah. I am now at the point in my life where I'm saying it's been 20 years, man. Like, I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing something authentic that feels like me, right? Yeah. There isn't really something anybody could show me where I'd be going off the rails into something else at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly. I actually remember I really wanted to try like humor writing back in my 30s. So I literally was like typing out David Sedaris copy. He's like, you know, great humor writer, and just trying to copy his voice. And it's like, so again, it's like I hadn't established my own voice, but over time, like you, right? Yeah. You become confident and you realize, you know, this is me. And you, like you said, you're authentic, and you know, people can still criticize it. I don't mind. Like you know, my novel, I don't think everybody loved it. And hey, all the power to them. I don't like every book I read. You're welcome to hate it.
Right. And this goes right back to, Danielle, this goes right back to now we're not reacting, we're observing, right? So even what we produce, it's a subject for observation. It's not necessarily going to gut us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sure. That's so amazing. Okay. So getting to this point in your life where you were able to sort of say, okay, I'm in my 40s now.
Yeah.
I want to get control on certain areas of my life. There are places where I'm not happy. And one of the things that's hindering my happiness is alcohol. And also, so up to that point, the point where you decided to eliminate alcohol from your life, you were doing yoga, you were doing Reiki, you were already doing all of those things.
Yeah. Yes.
And you were exploring Buddhism as well.
Yeah. So I mean, my mom's listening. So I was raised Catholic, and I'm still, I'm always going to be Catholic at heart.
Yeah.
It's, part of who I am. So I actually was always just a very spiritual child, and I think creatives kind of are too. I think it just goes with being creative, whatever religion or whether you had a religion, we just kind of connect more with this otherworldliness. You know what I mean? So, so then, over the last 10 years, I guess even more than 5 years, Buddhism is one of the things that, I started to read more and more about Buddhism just because it just really resonated with me in understanding, in building self-awareness is a large part of it, as we've been talking about. And that was kind of like, as you and I both talked about, as we grow more self-aware, what's the next level? So part of that was the more, I don't know if you call it spiritual or the more universal awareness. So Buddhism, Reiki, as you said, we both have our level 1 and level 2 Reiki, and yoga, which is movement, mindfulness, breath. So I was pursuing all those things, and I was drinking lots of wine at the same time. Read some Buddhism, have a sip of wine.
Yes. Okay. And also, everybody, you have to look at Danielle's blog. It's called Radiant Age. I am going to put the link in the comments afterwards. But oh my God, the way you write, I was like, is this me? Like, are you channeling me? Like, even when you talk about the having 1 or 2 glasses in the evening, and then it's 3 or 4 on the weekend nights, and then when you're with friends, it's just limitless. And I don't know about you, but like, I've always been like that, and I've also been the most sober friend. Like, I was never like get sloshed and start doing crazy stuff.
Right.
I had my constitution, so I always thought, well, I can handle this. I mean, my dad, his name was Wolfgang. He was a big German guy. So, if I come from that, I'm good.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just wanted to say it was really interesting to hear you also, say that this was your pattern.
Yeah. I mean, it was a pattern that, I had tried to moderate my drinking many times from, I mean, I didn't, when I had little kids, I really didn't drink much. I was pregnant, back to back 3 times and just surviving day by day. So I like drinking really wasn't a thing. But it was like, as I was getting into my mid 30s and 40s, kids were getting older. It's like, oh, glass of wine here, glass of wine there, a glass of wine at the party, more wine at the party. It was just like, it was such a big part of my life. And that's when I started to think, maybe I should moderate this. Maybe it has a little too much power over my life. And going back to like all these practices that I was including in my life to build self-awareness, to get rid of that impulsiveness that drove a lot of more of my life than I wanted. I was in some not particularly healthy relationships, whether it be friendships or romantic. And I realized, I can do all the yoga in the world. I can do Reiki. I can, go to therapy, whatever. But this one thing is really holding me back. And for me, it was the fact that I kept relying on, it was wine generally, just on almost a daily basis. And I was never an alcoholic. 100%. In fact, when I quit drinking, everyone was like, well, you're not an alcoholic. And I was like, I know, but so I needed the clarity. At the end of the day, you're not getting for me, I wasn't getting the clarity that I really wanted through yoga and all these other things. I really needed to just stop that reliance on alcohol. And I can say with 100% certainty that clarity I've gained from living sober, it was the missing piece. And it's like helped me to, transform that much more and evolve. And it's yeah, it's been life-changing. And I tell women, I'm like, if I could do it, anyone could do it, because I love to drink.
Yeah. And you know what I think is so refreshing about what you're saying, not refreshing as in a cocktail, but refreshing in a new way of thinking, is exactly what you just said. You weren't an alcoholic and you chose to stop drinking. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about as well, because you have a really good blog post where you talk about the 20 steps to quit drinking cold turkey. And one of the things you touch on, which is a big one for me, is having that conversation, or not necessarily having a conversation, but just being able to, how do you deal with, you know, pushback from friends and family? Like, they're used to you sitting back and having a beer with them and having a good time. And now you have something else in your hand. And, you know, how do you have that conversation? Yeah.
I mean, it feels so long ago now, because it's been almost 2.5 years.
So people are used to you not participating now. But do you remember when you first started, were there people who were like, hey, Danielle, come on, it's just one.
Yeah. I mean, I was known, you know, I had a bit of a party persona, and I was proud of it. Like, when I got to the party, it's like, oh, where's the wine? Hey, Danielle, have some wine. And like, you know, that social diva would come out, and you know, when you drink, you think you're just the funniest, most entertaining person in the world. We all do. So there was the fear that, oh my gosh, how am I going to survive a party without alcohol? Like, I've got to somehow be sociable without this lovely lubricant that I enjoy so much. And the people who, you know, I hung out with most, I wouldn't say they were against it, but they're just, you know, it wasn't unusual that I'd hear, oh, I preferred drinking Danielle. When I get the part, I'd be like, sorry about that. But but my closest friends and family, they actually didn't give me a hard time. But I know it's not the same experience for a lot of other people. There's like a huge pressure to keep drinking. And like, I think the bigger your social life and the more alcohol dependent, you know, social gatherings are, I do think it's harder. But I can say that people just get used to it over time. It's just, I actually would lie also at the beginning. I just wouldn't even tell people I've quit. It's just like, oh, I'm driving tonight. So you don't have to get into the conversation until you're like ready to actually be honest and deal with the you know, backlash that might come. So I remember a friend of mine, she's actually a Burlington businesswoman, actually named Kenda. She's big on Instagram, and she's quite well known. She reached out to me because she liked my posts, and she said I motivated her to also quit drinking alcohol. And she did tell me some funny stories. One was she was talking on the phone with a friend. Hopefully she doesn't mind me sharing this. And a friend, she said, oh, I was talking to the friend, and she goes, I have something to tell you, you know, at a serious note, to her friend. And her friend, she said there was this awkward silence, and I may get the story a little wrong. There was this awkward kind of long silence. And she said, oh God, don't tell me you've quit drinking. You're kidding. It was like the worst thing on the planet. So when she told me, she was quite serious, but I just burst out laughing, because I'm like, it's crazy how there's this like, oh, if you quit drinking, then like our life is screwed. Like there's no more good times, and who am I going to drink with? So yeah. And I would imagine it's hard in relationships or marriages too. Like when you're both, because my husband has never drank. And when I met him, he was only 23, and I'm like, are you an alcoholic? Like I just thought only alcoholics don't drink. It was so, and he said, no, I just don't like the taste. And I'm like, what are you, 12? Like, what the hell? I couldn't even comprehend. Right. But it is a challenge, and, you know, and also, like my upbringing, my parents, both from Germany, my dad was a winemaker. Like I have this like emotional attachment to it, where it's like feels like it's another family member, you know, it's like a part of our world. And, but I do know, Danielle, like I can tell you if I'm up north at the cottage and I've gone a little like overboard, Monday, Tuesday, I'm suffering. And it's not just a fog, it's like depression. It's
it's anxiety. There's a lot of stuff that's not maybe full blown, but enough to affect me in a negative way. And so I've actually started a new thing since the new year. In January, I quit altogether. February, I kept it going. Yeah. And then I was like, at the end of Feb, I'm like, no, I really want a glass of wine. So now I buy a bottle of red and I have one glass Friday, one glass Saturday, one glass Sunday, and then nothing else.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which, yeah, it's good. But, you know, I often think too, like I think, God, what would it be like to actually not do it at all? Because we were talking before we came live, we were talking a little bit about Reiki and, you know, without having the alcohol, the magic comes in more as well.
Yeah.
You know, and it really, I can understand why you said in one of your blog posts that from now that you're practicing your yoga and no longer drinking, you're getting the true magic of what it can actually do for you.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit about that with us? About what you're feeling, the difference?
Well, I mean, I follow on Instagram and just in general, I know a lot of other yogis because I have, you know, my 400 hours teacher training. So I've been surrounded by yogis quite a bit in the last several years. And I just kind of, I'm in that kind of following on social media of people who are into like, you know, mindfulness and trying to evolve. And, like one of my posts was the spiritual practice of sobriety, because I feel like that became sort of a spiritual practice for me. So if somebody is looking at kind of elevating, going to the next level, because like, you know, if you're doing the yoga and you're doing the Reiki and meditation, which is all awesome, you know, Wim Hof, I'm a fan of Wim Hof, the Iceman. But if you're drinking alcohol like that, that does hold you back, and that's fine. But if you are looking for the next level, like to me, it became a spiritual practice because I was forced to address like all my triggers. And, you know, it's when you're addressing those, you know, you can call them demons, your shadow parts, your temptations, that is true, you know, transformation. So, whenever I was jumping to a glass of wine, I realized, oh, it's because I was triggered by, you know, I'm feeling lonely tonight, so I'm having a glass of wine. So I had to kind of address that one at a time. Or like, I just need to treat myself. I need an indulgence because I had a rough day. So I would have a glass of wine. So I had to kind of address that. And you know, I was forced to just strengthen my spirit, strengthen, you know, who I am, and grow to more full self-acceptance. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I don't even know if that answered your question, but
it does. Yeah. And it's so relatable, which I love. I think a lot of people are struggling with that, and I think it's so great to talk to you about it today, because with COVID, it's easy for us to hide now, right? So it's easy to drink more than we used to. It's easy to not wash your hair for a week, was my favorite thing to do now. It's like Tuesday, I shower. You want a picture of me? You take it on to Tuesday. Other than that, I'm out.
I know. I put makeup on today just for this.
Exactly. Like we are hiding, and I think we have to be careful that we're also being good to ourselves, because deep down we know when we're overdoing, and we can really harm ourselves with negative self-talk and shame and all that kind of stuff. So it's wonderful. Like what you're putting out into the world is so helpful, Danielle, because you're showing us all that, hey, you know, like this happened to me, and I you know, you didn't have a problem with alcohol. You were just like everybody else, and you decided, nope, I'm not going to do this anymore. So
and I really made sure when I started this blog, I mean, mostly I started just to make myself accountable, because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to last a year. Like the vow was, I'm just going to go a year without alcohol. And I'm like, I know I won't be able to do it, but I thought, at least if I blog, even if just one person is reading my blog post, I'm not going to want to screw up. So, but then more and more, when I got more into writing it, I realized it was really important to never put any kind of judgment or shame on anyone who does drink, or, you know, is struggling to quit or what, like, it's just, there's no judgment. It's just like, my whole thing was, if you actually want to quit, if you're thinking about it, I just wanted them to know that, okay, I did it. It was hard. And these are all the struggles that I had to overcome to do it, but I did it. And now that I'm on the other side, I'm way happier. It's just, there's no comparison to how much I used to drink and where I am now. And so for anybody who is worried that it's going to make them feel guilty, I don't think it has that tone. It's like, hey, you know, if you're interested, this is how it worked, and this is, you know, just a different way of looking at life. And you know what, to be honest, I drank for 30 years, and I'm like, you know what, I've had my fill. Like, how about a new adventure? Like, alcohol's boring. Like, let's try something cool and new. And what's more new than like giving up alcohol completely after 30 years of kind of drinking socially? So I looked at it as an adventure as well, and like with curiosity. Great. And that's kind of a helpful way of looking at it as well.
Oh, I love that. That's a great attitude. And, you know, I was going to say as well, because I know you're a few years younger than me, you are saving yourself from menopause symptoms big time. Like, so it's so funny. Like some nights on those Friday nights when I have the first glass, I have one sip and I'm like full out hot flash. I've like gone from like wrapped in a blanket to my husband looks over and I'm in my underwear. I'm like, oh my God. He goes, do you think maybe it's the wine? I'm like, don't talk to me about the wine. I know he's right.
I'm drinking my wine. Deal with it. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. No, like there's definitely vanity in not drinking alcohol. I am fully vain, 100%. I have some strong, shallow characteristics. And one of the main reasons why I kept not drinking was like my skin was freaking glowing after like 2 months of not drinking. I'm like, no more weird rashes that travel around my face. No more, you know, like dull skin from being hungover for 2 days. So vanity, it's great. If you're vain, like,
and what about, tell me about the belly area.
Yeah, like weight stays off. Weight does not, like, there's no weird fluctuations. Seriously, it's great for looking and staying young. I mean, you know, I know I don't look like I'm 25, but I noticed a difference. And
close enough, girl. Close enough.
And I look 45. I've saved, chopped 3 years off my appearance. There we go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay. So now the other thing I wanted to ask you about, 400 hours of yoga
training.
Okay. So tell me about that. So that's what you've done in your yoga lifetime?
Yoga training. It's like a yoga teacher training. Is to get a yoga teacher training certificate, you do 200 hours. So I've done 2 of those. So it's 400.
So you've done
hours.
400 hours.
Yeah, but I mean, I actually don't teach. But I know a lot about yoga now, and I practice on my own. And the thing is, I mean, I'm going to be full disclosure here, and you know, the reality is I'm not one of those super flexible yogis that do these amazing feats. And when I'm in a yoga class, no one's going to look at me and go, oh, she must be a yoga instructor. They'd be like, look, she doesn't even know how to do the pose right. So it's like, you know, yoga isn't about like looking amazing and like getting that foot behind your head. I'm like, you know, yoga is just a personal journey. And 400 hours, but like I said, I'm not one of these amazing yogis that you see in class who's like balancing on one foot and like killing it. And everyone's looking at them like, oh my gosh, that person's
but still, that's fantastic. So do you practice yoga every day? Is that your...
I mean, I do, but honestly, it's often just like 10, 15 minutes. I run. I'm big into running again. I gave up for a long time because I had a horrible injury. And that's when I got into yoga, but then I just started missing that adrenaline that running gave me, because yoga's like pretty chill. So I've returned to running, and I run or walk every day. So yoga now I use mostly for stretching. And the longer COVID goes, the lazier I get when it comes to forcing myself to practice yoga. But I do it about at least 15 minutes every morning. I do I call it my yoga stretch. And sometimes I throw in a few extra fancy poses just to keep my yoga body going. but yeah, I mean, I do love yoga. I do. And I do plan on teaching at some point. I actually started teaching. I had my own class, Yoga for Runners, just before the pandemic hit. And obviously it all disappeared because we don't do in-person yoga anymore. So
yeah,
hopefully
I know.
Soon.
God, my mom and dad did yoga.
Oh,
and I
wow.
remember, my my mom would do every morning. She'd do Cat Stevens' "Morning Has Broken," the sun salutation to that song, and we learned it as kids. And we have the most adorable picture of my brother doing the hip stretch with the one leg over, and my mom's beside him, and he's like 2 years old, I think.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, so we grew up with yoga. My parents were all
amazing. Wow, that's pretty unusual, right, for back then.
Yeah,
so
for
wow,
sure.
you got into it really young. So
yeah, but I haven't practiced all the way through. And actually, funny thing, this morning I was like, my back was hurting me so much. I've had all kinds of problems because of the sitting nonsense now.
Yeah,
and I'm walking the dog and I can hardly bend over to pick up the poop. I'm like, what the hell? And then I was so grumpy. But I did 20 minutes of yoga, like just a gentle stretch, and oh my God, I mean,
so much, eh?
It sure does. And after the fact, like even when I came here and I was getting ready to talk to you, I'm like, oh, something cracked. Oh, something shifted. Oh, something.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's why I do my stretch. I'm like, it makes all the, I hate to say, like, it's age. You can't avoid these creaks and stiffness of age. I'm like, I don't remember having trouble putting on my socks 10 years ago. Like when I get out of bed, like I didn't. But I was like, oh, my back.
I know. Even the way like I put my underwear on now is completely different. I've got this like side move with my leg, and I'm like, oh my God, what the hell?
I don't think all the yoga and the moves in the world can prevent the stiffness at least when you get up in the morning. Like you feel, I feel those 48 years of like, oh my gosh, my body's stiff. That's why I do my yoga first thing in the morning. I'm like, hey, stretch. The child's pose starts with my back, like literally like hunchback of Notre Dame. And then slowly I get down there. I'm like, you can do it.
Oh my God. Okay, Danielle, you're making me feel so good, because this is what we're missing with COVID, like just getting together and chatting and being in the same age bracket and realizing like some mornings I'm like, what are you, 100? But you're right.
I know.
This is the space too.
I know, and I shouldn't tell my secrets. Okay, I'm a stiff yogi, and I have 400 hours of teaching training. Like I'm supposed to hide that. I'm supposed to pretend. But no, let's just be honest. Like, come on.
Yes, please. Thank you. I love that. So now you have plans to open a business with your sister in the fall. Are you allowed to say what that is, or is it top secret?
Oh yeah, sure. I can say it. Yeah. Sure. Okay. We're just really in the beginning stage. But it's going to be, we're calling it Garden Lifestyle. So we're both the green thumbs. We love gardening. But we thought we'd move into indoor gardening, like house plants, because with the COVID, us like everyone else is like, oh, we need greenery around us because like life is like so difficult right now. Yeah. So I've become an indoor green thumb, as has my sister. So we're going to be doing a business that focuses on eco-friendly, sustainable indoor gardens accessories, like really cute flower pots that are either locally made or fair trade imports. And we're looking at doing like funky gardening gloves, which, if you're a gardener, that's cool. Having funky gardening gloves. I'm like, oh, why do they always look so like boring and, for people with no sense of style? So just things like that. That's our plan. We're hoping to launch in the fall. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, you have to let me know. We'll do a post here to our audience, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to.
God. Well, Danielle, thank you so much. Today's been so enlightening. I'm just making sure we didn't miss anything. I think is there anything else that you wanted to cover off that we made?
Hey, can I do a little shameless self-promotion?
Yes, go for it. Love it.
So I have written a young adult novel, though honestly, I find older women like it better than teens, which is probably why it hasn't been a huge success among young adults. But it is sold at Amazon, and Indigo is published by a publisher in Oakville called Mosaic Press, and it's called Like Lana, like Lana.
Wow.
So if anybody wants to support local authors, you can find Like Lana.
That's awesome.
On Amazon or Indigo. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, I'm going to post that as well. That's so great. My brother works for Mosaic Press.
No way.
Yes. That's so cool. Yeah. And do you know the folks there?
Well, yeah, I know the owners for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Howard like championed my book. So he was the one who like loved it. And he's like, oh yes, this is, we still need to support this book. So,
great.
Yeah, I know Howard quite well.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. My brother had a couple of friends who worked there. We have a friend's mom, Elizabeth Delmida. I don't know if you know her. She works there.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, it's a famous place. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's so cool. I love it. Well, I'm so happy you came, and I'm so excited about catching up on my West of the City magazine reading as well. Great magazine. And you guys are so supportive of local and keeping people informed. And like you said, I love how you're focusing on the happy things and not talking about the COVID stuff all the time, because we get enough of that. We don't need any more of that stuff. Yeah.
I don't think so. Let's pretend it doesn't exist when we read West of the City.
That's right. It's an escape.
It's an escape. Be shallow. Just like dream about, sunglasses and clothes and a pretty house.
Of course.
It's okay to be like that sometimes. Come on.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, Danielle, thank you so much. So I'm going to invite you now to join me for an Instagram after party. But before we do that, I'm going to put you back in my fancy virtual green room.
Okay.
And then I'll come right back to you.
Okay,
thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for watching today. Oh my gosh, Danielle's amazing. I love how honest and authentic she is. And that's really what we need, is honesty. So, nobody feels bad or shameful or any of that silly stuff. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks for your comments, and I will be sure to answer them later on today. And remember, if you need some new clothes and you want something shiny and satiny, which we all need in our life, go to brendabadome.com and use the coupon code GET2KNOW-HER for 21% off of your order. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you back here next week, and keep showing the world your sparkle. Bye for now.